Perspectives YYC is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. The APN was built by Karen Unland, whose only purpose in life seems to be to grow and support local podcasts. Podcasts like ED, Conversations About the Teaching Life, a podcast for teachers by teachers, hosted by Shane Lawrence. A friend of mine in Toronto, Maple if you want to be specific, Jeff Ruggiero, was actually interviewed once about being a librarian and the modern tropes that role brings. I was still stuck in the mid-80s and 90s, horn-rimmed glasses and stamp cards, but they vibe on technology, 3D printers, and just general awesomeness. Check that out at theedpodcast.podbean.com, or for more fascinating Albertan podcast information, get on the Alberta Podcast Network at www.albertapodcastnetwork.com, or on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at AlbertaPodNet. Welcome to Calgary Culture, the Perspectives YYC podcast, a series of conversations with a series of local creators as we try to get serious about culture here in Calgary. Have you ever wondered what goes on in the mind of a hip-hop artist? I have, and I got the opportunity to sit down with A.Y.E, local musician, producer, rapper, sensation, and father. We get into modern culture and what he believes to be a lost concept, soul food, history, family, your roots, versus what he describes as the fast food generation, quick hits and no substance. Do you agree with A.Y.E? Listen to his album that's blowing up on Spotify, Soul Food, the Autobiography. Then hit me up with your thoughts both on his perspective and his music. Hit a like, subscribe, share, and get involved. Culture doesn't come from standing by, but from interacting, interchanging, and participating with each other. Check A.Y.E out on Spotify, Instagram under I am A.Y.E, on Facebook, or just Google the dude, A.Y.E.
What it do, what it be, you gotta get to the seat. You got to give, yeah, you got to give, you gotta get to receive, yeah, see we all got wounds, and we all got needs, you gotta get, see we all got wounds, to receive, see we all got needs, what it do, tell me what they do, what it be. Tell me what they be. You gotta give. You got to give to receive. You got to give. 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 You got to give.
All right.
Just start it, see where it ends up.
Okay, so A.Y.E, maybe I'll ask you that. How did we meet, man?
How did we meet? We met randomly. Good friend Wayne was like, "Yo, man, you want to premiere this video on a wall?" And, he's like, yeah, well, frick, sure, let's do it. I haven't really heard anybody in the city doing that, and it's kind of unique. So we met on I don't know, what was it? It was like a little chilly night.
Fuck, dude, it was like minus 35 or some shit on Stephen Ave.
Premiering this video downtown. Yeah, it was quite the unique interaction.
Yeah, it was fun, man. I got this weird job opportunity to do what they call guerrilla marketing and broadcast commercials on the side of the building. But the boss, the guy that hired me, was like a super awesome guy. Mm-hmm. And so I asked him, I was like, you're giving me this huge projector. Can I just do whatever I want with it? And he was like, yeah.
That's awesome.
So then I talked to Wayne. He said he was working on that debut for you.
Oh my. Yeah.
We shot it on the side of the RBC building.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Dude, it was fun, man.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't minus 40 and we actually had like
a bit of a little, but to be honest, the way it went down was, I wouldn't take it back. I think it was cool. I think like the few people that we shared that moment with was cool. It wasn't like we were out there in the blistering cold just with our fingers falling off. We had a little bit of warmth and like there was some people walking around and so some interaction, some connection. So I think it was a good success.
I'm still working on the idea of a projector in general, just as a side note, but when you do it legitimately, it's a pain in the ass. And then those things cost a lot of money.
Right.
Proper ones.
Bulb blown, it's a couple thousand, all that, yeah, it's expensive.
But I was happy that you said yes, which is also, I think an important part of that little story is that you just let us do it, which is cool.
It was, definitely spontaneous on the fly, and I think that was a cool thing about it as well, right?
Tell me about yourself. Are you Calgary? Are you from here?
I'm born in Calgary, somewhat raised in Calgary. I grew up in Vancouver and Montreal, and then came back here. So Calgary's always been home. We moved around a lot, so it's like you get some friends and boom, you're gone again. But it was nice. It was a good opportunity to just like see what Canada was all about. Vancouver is definitely a cool place to live. Has that eclectic vibe, very, vibrant type of city. And then Montreal is a little different, more traditional, more classic, but very multicultural as well, I'd say.
Like, how long are you spending at each of these places?
I spent in Vancouver like 2-3 years maybe.
How old are you? Are you a kid? Or are you?
Yeah, I think I moved there when I was like 3 or 4. Left when I was like about 12. So yeah, a few years in elementary. Montreal was about 12 till I think 14, 15. It's cool. They held me back because I didn't speak any French.
Oh.
So that was cool. Came back to Calgary, had to redo a grade, but it was actually cool. So I was like that 18-year-old in like grade 12, getting liquor and all that nonsense. But every city has its own like unique vibe to it.
All of this sort of thing that you've been going through, how does it relate to your art and to your music? You always been interested in arts and music throughout all of this sort of migration through Canada, or?
Yeah, really for me, the music stemmed from like my dad. Like my dad's been like a major like anchor and like person that like inspired me musically. Yeah, when I was younger, it's like rehearsals in the basement, doing live shows. So I don't know, when you see your dad on stage and you see that, I just was like, had this spark, I guess, this flame. It just kind of manifested and nurtured itself. From that, I actually just started playing my little kid instruments to getting like my first 8-track recorder. Dad's friend who he was doing music with was a producer, so he had all this gear. And like he was the first person I ever recorded like a record with. Me and my brothers, we did like a reggae track when we were younger, just exploring, right? From there, I played keys in my dad's band when I think I was about 16. Just after that, I started producing for myself. My brother and my sister had a little hip-hop group that we were like doing in high school, junior high.
Awesome.
So yeah, I don't know, music's always just been around.
Yeah. Is it, so what did talk to me about your dad, like what did he used to do? He's clearly a professional musician, or?
He was very like well known in Western Canada in terms of like the reggae facet. So they opened for many, legendary acts, some international acts. I think they opened for Burning Spears. They opened for Culture, some pretty international. If you know your reggae, you know some of these names. Half Pint, and they're backing them up too. So yeah, shared the stage with many like legendary acts, and so they just would tour the West Coast, and they had a couple projects, albums that they put out.
Where's your family from?
My mom is from Guyana, and then my dad is from Nevis. Nevis and St. Kitts, it's like a little island.
St. Kitts I've heard of. Nevis.
Yeah, so it's St. Kitts and Nevis. So Nevis is the little island, not very popular. It would be St. Kitts over Nevis. He did his little migration thing, went to Detroit, States, and then came up to Canada. And then him and his friend just started this reggae band. Started in Montreal, actually, Toronto, then they came out here. It's funny, I actually did an interview not too long ago, and this guy mentioned, it's like, oh yeah, like I hear your dad's like a reggae legend around here. And I had to chuckle for a minute there. It's like, reggae legend, okay. And I had to call my dad and like chuckle with him a little bit about it. I'm like, they're calling you a legend out here.
What would you say, not to probably spend too much time on this, but the role of music then in your family, sometimes when you hear stories of people that have musicians in their family, it becomes a bit formal or resentful or overly structured or whatever, but not just your dad being a reggae legend, but that you and your siblings had a hip-hop group. There's fun there too. What is that like? Is it something that's involved on a theory level? Are you guys learning music from like a formal sense, or is it just part of your family?
It was just part of the family. I'm playing keyboards now in like my own band, and like I've had no formal training whatsoever, no lessons, no teacher, and so what we were doing, it was just we just practicing producing, just clicking things. It was that age where it was all about FL Studios, so I just started there. Yeah, I would just write a little rap here and there, try and go perform it. And then from there, just brotherly, sisterly drama. And, you want to do it your way, that way. So I ended up just going to do my own thing. And so it went. And
there'll be a reunion, I'm sure.
Little reunion tour. I gotta talk to everybody. Everybody has to get their money right. Make sure it's worth it for everybody. But no, yeah, it was a fun experience. Like, it definitely. Like, my brother does his own thing as well now. My sister doesn't really do anything musically, although I always bug her every now and again to like hop on something. So, even like this Soul Food of the Autobiography, she's on a record called Give Thanks. So
that's my favorite track.
I like to stay in house and like not really feel like I have to go and work with some big top name person to like know, like, you know what I mean, create or solidify myself as an artist or musician or whatever the case may be. So it's always been family oriented.
Are you guys inner city or in the burbs? Where are you guys growing up? Like in Calgary anyways.
Calgary, where do we grow up? We grew up in Northwest, like Varsity.
Also,
I guess, I don't know if that's not burbs.
No, kind of like
yeah, it's like inner outskirts of the inner city. Yeah, it's close enough to this inner city. When I was younger, I grew up in Castlereagh, just the Northeast. So yeah, pretty in inner city, I guess. Yeah.
No, not to. I don't know. I mean, as somebody from from Toronto, I'm Korean, and like you brought up already, going to other Canadian cities and seeing actual multiculturalism. Not to be a hater, but like it's different.
Definitely.
So, what do you think that's like for you growing up, as a black man in his family, reggae, ska, hip hop, family that wants to do music for fun, growing up in Calgary, right? In the early mid 2000s, whenever presumably this is, how does that influence how you become a musician, right? Like,
I think I had like when I first started, this topic definitely came up, and it was like, how do you stand out, or how do you create something where this line of thing is just totally like overlooked. It's not established because there's not enough people to establish it. It was unique. I think for me, I kind of like being that diamond in the rough, the underdog. So like Calgary isn't like super heavily musically inclined, but I don't mind trying to be that person to like break through or rep the city or put it on my back and be like, okay, yeah, Calgary is more than Stampede and redneck cowboy type vibe. I think I like to look at it as a negative, but flip it and turn it into positive. But it is different. It's not a huge demographic for one, and then there's not a huge platform or for opportunities. Although now, through different facets, it's grown. I think we're in a place now where you don't need much to kind of create something. And if it's something cool and unique, people will vibe with it. It's just that Calgary isn't it's not overly multicultural. So I do believe, I was talking to somebody else, this might be veering off a little bit, but just like something how like Calgary only really has the Stampede. Like if we had some of these other festivals or things that we could create more of like this traction or traffic with these cultural areas, and if Calgary put that same amount of money and love that they do to Stampede, I feel like it would create more of a city vibe. Calgary's only popping with Stampede, and it's just like everything else is just like, okay, that's cool. But Stampede happens and it's like it's everywhere. It's like, it takes over the city. Whereas if you had a couple different type of multicultural festivals like that, I think it would be definitely something that could help create more of a vibrant city multiculturally. But hey,
yeah, it's an interesting thing in Calgary. I've only been here. It's a long time. It's 7 years. So my window is like 2012, and then when my life falls apart and goes to shit, and then I start actually trying to plug into the city. I gotta love living here. When I'm plugging into the city, Sled Island, for example, you had a big year this year, in my opinion. Taking pictures of the rap city. there's something going on. And I'm meeting guys like you and women and all of these folks, these incredible creators in the city, that there's this vibrance, this energy, this wanting. People, whatever the facet is, whether it's sort of like a folksy indie, kid on a banjo, or like somebody that's trying to, like Cartel Madras, trying to do sort of like shock rap type of this, that, and the other thing, conscious this, or whatever it is, whether it's painting, street art, fine art, there's so many people that I'm meeting already that not only have desire, but there's like good talent. There's also this feeling there's a block, that there's something holding somebody back. And it gets easy to like kind of dwell on that too much and then just start hating on the situation. But, growing up here, what's your feeling like? I don't know if you want to stay specifically, let's say, the hip hop culture of Calgary or the music world or art in general over the last, 10 years or however long you've been kind of like building yourself up to get to where we are today. It's obviously changing, but, what's your overall impression about it? Are you optimistic? Is there something that needs to happen? What's going on?
I'm definitely like optimistic. I always said like I think it was around 2016 or something when I felt like that vibrancy spectrum was growing. I was like, I think I'm gonna grow with the city. You know what I mean? And like I think it was 2016. When they kind of coined Calgary being the music city or whatnot. So I just found that was a coincidence, and just like, I'm optimistic. I think we just got to keep the energy going, you know what I mean? In all facets and all areas of in that creative space, that multicultural space. Yeah, I think Calgary has the potential to kind of, you know what I mean, be a little Vancouver, a little Toronto, we'll say we're a little Vancouver, but yeah, it's just a matter of, I think, us creatives to keep it going and break through doors and barriers and roadblocks that are up, right? And every individual thing has its own little barriers, right? And individually, people are gonna have to break down those barriers, you know what I mean? We can even go with Toronto and rap, you know what I mean? In Junos, they weren't even giving certain love to the rap category, and the Rascals had to break down certain barriers and be like, yo, we don't want your award, and for them to get some love, and that, like, even just that whole story. So those types of things. But I think it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, it's interesting how like so much of human social sort of, that happened.
Express yourself.
Sometimes this idea of change, conflict, and having to kind of like push against something.
Yeah, you're always going to get a little friction. Yeah, that's kind of how things are made, and the beauty of it all, right?
So in that context, I mean, like, let's look at this album that you just released. Talk to me about it. What's your development as a solo artist? How does Soul Food come together?
It's definitely been some layers. There's been growth. I think Soul Food, the Autobiography, for me is just the opportunity for me to really grow into this space of who I'm becoming and really just nurture it and own in on it. I consider my life to be my music and my music to be my life, and it's easy to glorify and do the glitz and the glam and hype up your life or hype up who you really are, but for me, I'm trying to, like, with this album, just build a little layer of transparency, vulnerability, just kind of, my thing I'm coining right now is creating, connecting, and conversating. But yeah, Soul Food, nonetheless, is an album project just kind of about my life and kind of trying to fill a void that I feel is where something's lacking, and that is, like I was saying before, a lot of hip-hop is just, this current state of hip-hop is fast food. It's very fast-paced. We can go to McDonald's right now, hum and haw over a Big Mac, and shit looks good, tastes good real quick, but a couple minutes after that, you're going straight to the shitter, you know what I mean? Or, you know what I mean? So it's like, what's really good for you? Is it good what's good for you in the moment, or what's good for you that's long lasting? So basically, Soul Food is just trying to fill this void with some substance, you know what I mean? Trying to shape switch up the landscape a little bit. I'm not saying that I'm like some, I just, as an artist, I have a voice, and that's kind of like what I want to use my voice for right now, is just to kind of just add a layer of substance and authenticity, you know, because I think substance and authenticity is heavily lacking right now with hip hop, and that's to go back. That's why I really don't even want to be considered like a rapper. You know what I mean? There's just nothing there. It's just, you know, this whole brand that I'm moving with, which is like the Extraordinary People world, is just about embracing yourself. So that's kind of like what Soul Food is all about. It's just my life. It's the landscape of what hip hop is going on with right now. This is where Soul Food, the Autobiography, comes to be.
Like listening to this, thinking about vulnerability, authenticity, consciousness, soul, you know, comparison between this idea of needing something for immediate gratification and this long-term view, this idea of gratitude. Well, these are fascinating concepts. These are big concepts that, at least, I don't know, maybe it's too stereotypical to just say, for example, like, you know, you gotta be old, you gotta be beaten down, whether to start getting that kind of like perspective. But I don't know, do you think there's something in your life? I mean, I don't know how old are you?
27.
27. So, in my opinion, you're still a baby. But,
Yeah.
you know, you've been through some, 27, you're not a kid. But what is it that's giving you this context? I mean, for me, I'm 41, and for me, it took bottoming out, you know, just destroying my life and waking up completely delusional, selfish, and kind of self-absorbed. And even over the last couple of years of that realization, it's a daily struggle, right? It's like,
Of course.
I gotta wake up and pep talk myself to go do something good and help somebody.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just tell people to go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
It's easy. I got a lot of
That's the thing, is it's so easy to vibe off that energy and thrive off that energy, because I think what's constantly out here in the world is just this ball of negative energy, this hype train, this like superficial shit, where, you know, you gotta mask your feelings, mask who you are, and I think we all go through this in one way or another. It's different for everybody. And with the Extraordinary People, it's just about nurturing who you are and not letting this world dictate that for you. For me, though, at 27, I don't know, I'm an old soul, man. My next project is called Old Soul, Young Spirit, but in a different language. I feel like sometimes I've been here before and I'm just going through life again with a different perspective. So for me being young, I just kind of try to fill this space that I feel is needed with this space of like love and nourishment and spirituality, you know, and again, authenticity and this vulnerability, and just trying to nurture who I am as a person, and realizing that you don't really gotta like fake it to make it, although that's what they say. And you're either, that's, you know, it's all about what's feeding your soul, right? So I think for me, what feeds my soul at this time is just like family, love, and just growth. You know, you can go make a nice little chicken noodle soup, or, you know, some type of nice dish, but you can also just go to run to this fast food joint and get something real quick. So it's about what do we really want, right? And trying to decipher what's our wants and what our needs are. And I'm still learning. Everything is a learning process, trying to feel like I have to keep up with this trend or this cycle or this hamster wheel, whatever, that's just continuing going. Sometimes you just gotta hop off that wheel. And us as human beings are on this hamster wheel, and we're just continually going. So I'm just trying to find a balance between, you know, life, and I think too much of anything is good for nothing. And I'm not trying to say that, you know, it's all about consciousness and spirituality and all these things, but I think it's important.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, so you're asking the question, what is it really all for?
Right.
Now, there's no single answer, and that answer obviously evolves, but as you build a project like this and put all your energy into something like that, and it's not just like you're, you know, this project is clearly not just you showing up at a recording studio writing down some lines, and you know, it seems to be a little bit more in a lifestyle approach. But I mean,
yeah.
What are you getting? What is there something you would say that in this particular project you've gotten feedback? Like, is there something that you think you can point? Is there an anecdote? Is there some sort of relational thing that's happened that you can point to that might demonstrate to anyone listening right now that this pursuit of yours isn't just, you know, rhetoric? It's not just because it's hip to say that we gotta, you know, be nice people, but I mean, what's it been like doing this?
It's a struggle, man. Like you're saying, it's so easy. Like when I was younger, you kind of life beats you up, right? You got choices. We all have choices. It's like, what direction do we want to go? And like my last project before Soul Food was Nox, which means darkness in Latin. And you know, I've been to my dark places, and at that point, I had to figure out, you know, in all this darkness, am I gonna continue to just absorb what's around me, or am I gonna try and seek that light at the end of the tunnel and just go for that? I just find more joy, and I think it feeds the soul more when you're embodying this love and this energy of positivity versus, you know, waking up in this type of cycle, this negative cycle of feeling like you have to go to work and then go party and live it up in 2 days that you have off, or you know what I mean, you work and you feel like you gotta go spend $100,000 over at the club or buy this nice chain or so forth, whatever it may be for the said person. For me, like, I guess basically, I think what people are mainly, what I'm getting back from the project right now is just very carefree and very just like authentic, so I think people can relate to it, really. You know what I mean? There's always that layer, and I think I go below the layer of just, you know, what's on the surface. I think people just appreciate that.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I mean, I think the concept as a principle of vulnerability and authenticity, spiritualism, consciousness, the power is in that, in the empathy and in the connection. But I wonder, maybe as a contrast, I mean, you know, what is the dark spot? What do you think, in contrast to where you're at now, can give us an idea of?
Well, for me, like I could have been, I don't know, I think just the way I grew up, I definitely feel things and I see things a lot differently than people do. I'd rather be my best friend than my own worst enemy. Sometimes it's easy to get around life and, you know, with that fuck the world mentality. And yeah, you can go through life that way, but, you know, I don't think at the end of the day before you're dead and gone, or, you know, when you really have to self-reflect, are you going to be happy with yourself, you know? When you really embody what this soul food thing is about, and like really going in on who you are and what feeds your soul personally, because it's different for everybody, I think that's when, you know what I mean, you really get the opportunity to appreciate life and finding your purpose. So I'm really just, I've been through shit, I've been through dark moments, been through my shit. So I think in my music is my biggest therapy. I always say music is my therapy. So going through my life experiences, I put in the music, and through that I want to be able to help other people. Yeah, I don't know if there was any like one particular thing that happened to me to make me want to like flip the script or be like, okay, this is who I am now. But, you know, it's taking a moment, and I'm just like trying to like listen to what really feeds my soul. I want something that's nourishing, something that's gonna make me feel good, not for the moment, but on a longer scale, long term, you know what I mean? But yeah, like I used to get up and feel like, you know, screaming fuck the world, and I used to have my days of being, you know, I guess rebellious and just not giving a fuck. But I don't know, I get something out of the ability of being able to help people, and just, I don't know, I move off that energy. Yeah, that's what feeds my soul, just, yeah, helping others, spreading this love, and trying to switch the spectrum, or just the way of thinking, which is like right now it's just very fast-paced. So,
well, let's kind of switch gears then. I mean, bringing that then to the production, the build, this. I mean, talk to me quickly about how do you make an album?
Yeah, that's a good question. It takes a long time for me. Like, this is the longest project I've taken to put together. I think largely just because it is my life, and you can't really just quickly write a 16 off of things that you're like going through. And like, for me, every word means something. Every word has a key reason for why it's there. And like, music production wise, for this project, I wanted to like balance between the old school and the new school. Basically, I just laid some skeletons ideas down, and then I work with like my band members, Extraordinary Gentlemen. We did quite a bit of like live recording and tracking with like guitar and trumpet and trombone, just to kind of give it that more flavor, give it that substance musically. You know what I mean? Because lyrics is one thing, but musically, you know, again, there's a lot of sampling, there's a lot of flips, there's a lot of so on, and so I just wanted to kind of add some tangible, something that feels good, because, you know, when you playing live too, you know what I mean, you definitely can get a sense when you're playing with live instruments. There's a certain energy when there's people playing these instruments versus a DJ just playing a track.
Hated the most of that era is when DJs became guys on an electric fucking, it was like an iPod, and they just press play and then they dance and wear outrageous costumes. But and now I'm just being a hater. The production for the album, the music you were writing it?
Yeah, so I write all my own stuff. I produce all my own stuff. There's one track on there, I think it's number 9, which is called Feed Me, which was co-produced by a friend named Pioneer. So like I don't always produce on my own. I like to, you know, add my own flavor and like collaborate, co-collab or co-produce. So that's what I did for that one record. But yeah, other than that, it's mainly just myself and in the studio and just working.
Yeah, it's fun for me anyways, as someone who's never done it before, imagining, you know, like, and it's going to be different probably track by track, artist for artist, but like, are you showing up, you know, with your lyrics? Do you have an idea of what you want to do, like what kind of tempo, what kind of energy you want to hit? Does it come naturally as you start?
Yeah, I'd say like it just comes naturally. Every record, I feel like it just, to be honest, I don't really think I'm like a great writer. Things just kind of manifest and come out on its own, and it's different every time. So it could be just like a beat that inspires something. From there, you just kind of go and see where it takes you. This project, I did write quite a few records, but not all of them like made it to the project.
It's fun to hear that. I mean, not all artists that I've met are that intuitive. I think we all intend to be. There's something that's important about the intuition in art, but there's so much intent too, where people are like trying to play to a flavor, or like to hit a note, or to like, you know, I know this is gonna hit, or I know this is gonna be what feeds into, let's say, the club scene, or this scene, or whatever it is. How much influence, especially for this project, Soul Food, it sounds so personal. It sounds, you know, with the intent being to slow things down. I mean, yeah, where'd you put yourself on that scale? I mean, how much of it is this big map and this like project where I know I want to start my journey by like kind of like a diary of how I want to, you know, progress?
I think it was different layers, and then I just put it together. So it's like different things at different times. Sometimes I guess I'm writing things that are not necessarily like I'm going through right now, but it might have been something that happened a year ago. But for the most part, I think it's accumulative to like what I'm going through and who I am as a person right now. A lot of us look at certain people and we want to see people in a certain way and in a certain light, and it's like, hey, well, what if I told you I'm not who you want me to be? You know what I mean? Are you gonna still be down with me? And then sometimes too, like you'll produce something and you don't finish it till like 6 months down the road. Or yeah, like for one record, Don't Blow My High, I actually wrote that to a different beat, but the lyrics still held its weight and it still resonated, so I was like just polished it up a little bit, and then it just felt even way better over the new stuff. So it's just, you take from old stuff, you pull from the new stuff, you just go with that intuition, what feels good, try and tune in, you know what I mean? It is hard to tune in sometimes. For me, I'm like, I'm just gonna create something that feels good to me, and with that, I'm sure it'll feel good to other people, and with that, it's like, hey, if it feels good, I think they'll respond to it. I just want to give some substance, you know what I mean? Just balance out the landscape a little bit.
Well, it's interesting. I like his story, anecdote, whatever, but Don't Blow My High. How a project will feel right, but that context will change if you're open enough to want to feel different things through it, you know? But I think it ties into the second part, which is, what is your intent in writing this record? What is your intent of being an artist? What is your intent of, let's say, being a musician, for example? If it's not about record sales and being number one on Spotify, then I would assume, maybe naively, that it makes your ears more open.
Open?
Yeah.
In terms of what?
to like be able to try to be in tune with that intuitive feeling for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's easier to shut it off. Just like, yo, well, that's not gonna sound cool. They let 808 sound like this, or hi-hats need to be tripled up here like that, and it needs to break down here, and blah, blah. It's not enough trap. And that's every artist is their own, and not to hate or knock. Like, I think there's a landscape and there's room for everybody, but I think there's just too much right now of this like hip hop is oversaturated with fast food and just like nothingness, to be honest. Like, I'll turn up to some whatever you want to call it, Migos, every now and again. Like, it's not to sound like this is the only way to be and be conscious and like, you have some fun. It's all about having fun, and we all have fun in different ways, but it's just like going back to too much of anything is good for nothing. I think that's like a Jamaican proverb that, you know, my dad always used to say, or, you know, told me when I was younger.
What was it again?
Too much of anything is good for nothing. You know what I mean? And that can go for water, that can go for just many different things. If you just have one thing only, you know what I mean? You're gonna damage yourself.
I was reading recently, I don't remember where, probably Reddit.
Yeah.
The context of the article and the discussion was human beings' relationship with death, wisdom, aging, etc. I mean, as we talked in pre-chat, I don't know if I'll keep it in here, but you know, recently I'm going through some health problems and having to recontextualize myself with the knowledge that, a little melodramatically, but you know, like, we could be talking here and I might fucking fall down and die. But it brought this interesting idea that in North America in particular, culture's gotten a little screwed up, where people are afraid of aging and afraid of the elderly. So people compartmentalize. Either, I mean, not just the sort of like easy scapegoat of like the old age home, etc., but you know, even this idea of space and like, you know, your parents, they live on a separate plantation, you know, a separate house, and then the elderly live in a separate room, and this person's separate. But you go into these older cultures in Asia, Africa, even Europe, everybody stays together, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens there is the young see the people aging, and they see, according to this article, I mean, I don't want to make this my wisdom, but
I believe it. I see where you're going with it. Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, so like I'm listening to you and I'm thinking Jamaican. Sorry, what was the island again?
Guyana and
Guyana,
Nevis.
I know.
St. Kitts and Nevis is the other one. Yeah.
You know, I wonder, I'm listening to you and growing up with your family and seeing it and getting these problems from your dad, you actually listen to them. I mean, whether it was done in a pleasant way when you hear it or not, or whether you
pick it up later,
Yeah, the first time your dad gives you some wisdom, you tell him to go fuck yourself. But, you know, over time, you have an open ear and a respect for your family that, like, you know, you quoted me a proverb about sort of moderation, right?
Yeah.
And you don't hear that a lot from 25-year-old kids, and I'll overgeneralize, and this will be counter-racist, but 25-year-old kids who grew up in a family that they don't respect wisdom and age and culture.
Well, I think,
And then you get into that allegory that you want with the fast food, because if you don't have that age, culture, and soul food idea, if your grandmother isn't preparing, in my case, like Korean dumplings.
Yeah, that's what I was going to try and come up with a Korean. I'm like, what do you guys eat? Dumplings. That's right.
So, you know, you do your Mandu festival or whatever. And you know, my family's very westernized, so it's not like we're traditional, but I have memories as a kid of, you know, my grandma and mom, you know, fold and stuff. Getting it. But the farther you separate from that, the quicker you lose yourself, and then the quicker you end up into fast food. You're eating out. Yeah, you eat out. You lost yourself. You ain't eat. But yeah, you need your roots, man. Like there's a saying. I don't want to mess it up, but it's like a tree without roots is like I can't remember the exact quote, but it's a Marcus Garvey quote. But it's just about how you need to like be in tune with your roots. It's easy for the cycle that's going on right now with this social media. Like, you know, kids aren't being raised by their parents. Kids are being raised by society, and based on whatever society, however society wants to raise your kids, that's how your kids are going to be raised. Like, I have, like, my first, like, I just had a son, Akari, who's 6 months now. Yeah, it's crazy to think about, like, the life that he's going to be going through. But, like, things are getting more crazier.
advancements of technology is just like at a fast pace, and yeah, it looks cool and it's great, and you can do this and you can do that. But a part of us are losing our roots, and so the more West we come, the more we lose our roots. And I think a lot of what's popular right now, it has nothing to do with our root. It would be nice, like, I think when you're younger, seeing these things, experiencing these things, yeah, they have a major effect on your psyche and how you look at other elderly people, how you treat those people. And yeah, like I used to tell my mom, like she used to get mad at me, like, oh, you need to get out of my house. I'm like, Mom, you gotta watch how you talk, because it's like once a man, twice a child. You think just because you're 50, your life is like, you know, get out of my house. It was like, who's wiping your ass when you're 80? You know what I mean? Who's feeding you when you're 95? And it's just tying in with those roots and being in tune. Some of us just don't even realize, like, being at 50, that's something to still be appreciative about. Or, you know, looking, like you're saying, I'm watching your mom and your grandma make those dumplings, you know. You need that. A lot of families right now, they're not passing down those traditions, so you're losing that a lot. And yeah, the more these types of situations happen, the more we distance ourselves from the root and who we are and where we came from. Like, a lot of people just think we just came here from Canada, like, you know, Canada just landed here and this is Canada and woo-doo. And it's like, nah, you gotta go back and do your history. How did all this develop? Things were much simpler at one time or another, you know? And there's that whole idea of us as a civilization, us as humans, are we getting to a point of like destroying ourselves, you know what I mean? And losing ourselves. And I think it has that potential. But again, that's why you gotta find the things that really feed your soul. Yeah. To answer your question, it's tough trying to find this balance, and I'm always telling my mom, like, yo, I need to learn how to make that roti, I need to learn how to make this and that, and it's like, because as soon as, you know what I mean, if I don't learn it, it's gone. Kyrie, you know what I mean, my son, it's like, well, what is he gonna have to, you know, Western food, mac and cheese, that's for, no, I know how to make the best mac and cheese, like my dad taught me how to make, no, like, in West Indian tradition, and I'm sure in Korean traditions, you have certain dishes you make at certain times of the year and stuff like that. It's like, you can't just lose all that, you know? And it is up to the elderly to and just as much the younger kids to want that, but it's hard sometimes when society's like has this pull and Instagram and, you know, this whole thing of self-absorbance and, you know, sticking a camera in your face and taking 100 pictures, and you gotta go through, you know what I mean? And it's making people depressed, and it's making people feel above themselves, and it's just all these types of elements that you bring in, and it's like, you could see why those things are happening, right?
Ego, as we're describing it, with this selfishness, self-absorbed, this blindness to history, culture, relationships. And even outside of the sort of familiar structures you brought up, you know, socially, that's a tough one, man, because that's like asking people to break through their own denial and their own glasses and all that kind of, you know.
It's tough, and that's why I'm saying, like, if I could do that with the music, or just try and, you know, if somebody hears something and it's just like
this, you know. So I've been hanging out too with artists and poets, writers, thinkers, creators, entrepreneurs. One of the things I've been thinking a lot about is this, you know, semantics, right? I mean, what do these words that we use mean? I mean, even the word ego means something different, I think, today than it did when Freud coined it. Success means something different. Soul means something. Consciousness means something different than the last 15 years. Right?
That's a good point.
Right? So I wonder, as a challenge, how do we look at this to develop not just how you're going to speak through your music, but how do you speak to your son and whatever progeny you have, if you have more in the future, to the men and women in your life, to all of, like, to nature? Like, what are the words that we need to be mindful of using from now on that we can communicate that with? Because I think that's going to be my job.
Yeah, I think it's all of our jobs.
Yeah.
It's the toughest job because there's so much distraction and temptation out here right now, more than ever. And that's something that I like, not dreading or daunting, but I know it's going to come a point where, yeah, everything that I say and do, my son's going to be looking at me and either going to take it in some context, right? And I just want to make sure that what he's taking it, he can at least take it in the right way, you know? and planting these seeds, right, for them to grow in himself, you know what I mean? That's a tough task. You can only do so much, and then when you stick them out in the world, you're getting pulled all over the place. So yeah, it's tough. And there's some parents that feel like they've done all they could and done their best and did this and I did that and I did that so that wouldn't happen, and then boom, it's inevitable. There's nothing I could have done. It's tough. It's one of those, I don't know, catch-22s. That's what you want to call it. I think as long as our intentions are good, I think that's the main starting point is the intention, and then from there.
I think one of the things I'm learning in my older age, particularly after having a kid, but unlike you, so I bring up my family, but I mean I didn't really see them until my late 30s, just because I was so self-absorbed. But one of the blessings and miracles of my life right now is that it wasn't a relationship that was the relationship still exists. And I've been able to see this thing and connect with them, get a context and a perspective like you just brought up. What might it have been like for your mother to be raising your family in the conditions that they were traveling this way, that, So for me, I didn't appreciate my family never mind, not at all, period. Now that I'm opening that book and trying to learn and understand them and love them, etc., one of the things that I've come to realize, I think, for myself is the more I separate myself from this idea that I can control where my son is supposed to be, what he's supposed to experience, or who he's supposed to become, and more just like try to be that person that I hope that he wants to be.
Yeah, I think that's all you can do is just the intent. Try and be an example enough to not shove it down their throat. You don't want to shove it down their throat. One thing I learned, it's easy to just drop the hammer, but I think us as kids at any point in our age in our life, it's like when you're told something not to do something, you for whatever psychological reason, you're highly more inclined to do it just for the sake of doing it.
You have to.
So it's like, I think for me, it's learning how to not tell my son like no, and trying to give him the opportunity to discover things on his own and use his own brain and come to these decisions and learn, I shouldn't do this because so and so. So I think for me, that's going to be the toughest thing, is trying to reason and create that space where it's like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. And okay, if you want to continue to do that, you're going to have to learn the hard way. And, all these types of things through time, you just can hope that it did what it needed to do, or you've done your job right. But it's one of those things. I think having a child and down the road and thinking about who they become or who they will be is just, it's tough to see that, and it's like life is just it's mysterious. So I don't know. You never really know, right?
All right. So just to wrap up, I mean, how's Soulful going? How's the response been? Social media makes it sound like you're blowing up. How you feeling?
I don't know, man. That's the thing. Don't want to get too caught up with social media. Sometimes that shit will suck you in. But it's going well. I'm just gonna keep it positive. I don't want to go drag it down. But at the end of the day, for the most part, more than anything, I feel like this project has been the most receptive. A lot of people have been telling me they have their songs that they like. This is the one project where the album where it's I feel like, okay, I did what I had to do. It's out there. It feels good. There's, of course, every project you're gonna have your negatives or your critiques, but it's definitely been a good response. People have definitely been receptive, and I think everything that I needed to do was done. So I got to give myself a little bit of pat on the back for that and not be too hard on myself. It's been marinating for so long. It's time to serve it, and it's just a matter of how people digest it, right? And I'm not gonna find out right away, but I think right now it's a good feeling. And I just want to stay as humble as I can at the end of the day, because I've always, I'm very intuitive, very intellectual, and a lot of things I see before they happen, as weird as that wants to sound. So I just got to stay grounded. You know what I mean? I don't want to get too gassed on the hype or anything like that. And it's just one project, so I think part of me is time to get to the next one. You know what I mean?
What's next? I mean, not necessarily next, like you got to chase, but what?
No, right now I'm learning that, like, you know, within my family now, I got to balance it out. I got to practice what I preach. So, you know, I live this music like constantly every day. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. And so now it's about becoming a little bit more selfless. I have a son, so I have to, you know, be that caretaker, that provider. You know, there's things that the music needs and is calling and asking for, but I got to realize that, hey, I kind of have control over, you know, how and when things happen. And if it doesn't happen exactly how I want it, it's not the end of the world. But what's next, man? Just trying to solidify what I've been building on. This year, I told myself I'm just really trying to establish myself. I think a lot of people know of me, are aware of me, but there's this icebreaker that's gonna need to happen in the next little bit here for people to kind of be like, oh, okay. So, and that could be through many different ways. Soul Food is really, the autobiography is just meant to be the appetizer. So it's really just an appetizer. And right now I'm trying to put together and master what this main course is going to be about. As this project's 14 songs in, it's about narrowing down and cutting the fat and really honing in on some nice substance, some nice a meal you can really take in. It doesn't have to be a ton of songs, but it's really just about trying to create bodies of work now. So I have quite a bit of music, and so it's just a matter of seeing what fits and kind of listening to that intuition again and seeing what comes to be. Yeah, Soul Food is just the beginning, I feel like. So
from what I can see, there's a traditional aspect to your approach, becoming an artist and you doing gigs here. You got the social media game, you got marketing, you've got a firm behind you to back you up, some people. You're at SLED, so you know you're getting represented, you're doing this and that and the other thing. But as a final thought, looking at the Calgary music scene in general, is there something that you feel like we need to do different? I mean, it's a big, wide question to finish.
It's a good question, and it's a tough question. I don't know, every time people always mention Calgary, it's like, I don't know. I don't have the answer. No, I feel like it's tough. I feel like
we can't solve it in a podcast.
Yeah, you can't solve it in a podcast, but you can definitely plant some seeds. You can throw some ideas. So, like, for me, is there something that needs to be changed or something that's missing? Just, I think, a little bit more of the genuine support, real support versus the hype support, the coattail support. I think we just need to continue to create, and again, there's going to be that moment where we're going to have an opportunity to push through, and if we're ready to push through, then that's
where
what
we
do
can
it.
Break shit.
Just breaking the barriers, networking, and doing those spontaneous, unique things where it's like you wouldn't think this person and that person would go together, but you're fucking out of your mind. That's exactly what they need for things to grow, you know? Yeah, exactly. So
I keep looking at, and now we're just babbling, but like I'm on Reddit too much, but one of the subreddits I'm on is random acts of music. Most of it happens in New York, of course, but like, you know, someone just walk up to a busker and all of a sudden there's like a saxophone battle, or like two MCs hitting up on a train, flash mobs or stuff.
You know what? It's funny you say that. I was just talking to the gents, and it's exactly what I'm trying to somewhat do. What I want to do, raw, not too overproduced, and just pull up in random spots. They do this in Toronto all the time. You pull up, walk across Dundas, there's always a few guys playing. And just having these unique experiences where it's not like just playing the music, but you get the beginning of it, the plugging in, and the, you know what I mean? You can really absorb what's going on. I think that like transparency and just that vulnerability, and again, is just like throwing yourself out there. I think it's just like, I think people enjoy that. It's funny that you say that.
Come sit down and have a coffee with me. I have half a mind now to build my podcast around never doing it one-on-one anymore and just having some random like a painter. And the three of us have to talk about simulation.
Yeah, that's cool too. Those are great, good conversations. You learn things that way.
All right. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Really appreciate it, dude. Album's dope.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how to conclude these ever. So good work.
I'm just, feed your soul, and whatever that it consists of, just nourish your mind, body, spirit. Much love.
This episode's sponsorship message is from the Alberta Blue Cross Summit, a day to explore fresh perspectives and practices around wellness at work. Hear what Linda Crawford of Alberta Blue Cross had to say about the summit.
Alberta Blue Cross really wants to support people. We truly, truly are moving the needle in a way that we want to make an impact. And so, coming to even a first ever event is always fun. You can always now be able to say, hey, I was at that event. And our intention is to really leverage and scale this on an annual basis. So why not come and be that first pioneer and leader that raises their hand and says, you know what, this sounds fantastic. I want to be part of this movement, the energy that's going to happen there. Sign me up.
The summit's happening October 10th at the Renaissance Edmonton Airport Hotel. Sign up at thewellnesssummit.ca.
It's that homegrown, it's that vibe. Oh yeah.